Hi there. I'm very excited to introduce this panel today. I think it's quite an unusual lineup that we've got. I'm Mivy James. I'm Digital Transformation Director at BAE Systems. My background's in software engineering, so I'm particularly delighted to have a panel of engineers to introduce to you today. So we have Dimple, who's Technical Lead at Compare the Market, Katie, who's a Technical Ecosystem Advocate at Cloud Native, Jennifer, Senior Software Engineer at VMware, Nelly, Software Engineer at American Express, and Chenzi, who's QA Engineer at Saucer. So I'm going to ask each person to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you got to where you have today. Be interesting to see what's similar and what's different. I actually graduated in computer science and maths a very long time ago now, like 25 years ago. And have moved through software engineering, system design, architecture, and now I do tech strategy and advisory stuff. So Dimple, would you like to tell us a little bit about your career journey and how you got to where you are today, please?
Sure. So I graduated in computer science back in India. Then I moved over to UK to do my master's, and I did that in advanced computing with a focus on multimedia and animation. And then strangely enough, like my first job had got nothing to do with animation. So I started off as a junior engineer and then progressed to become senior engineer in a few consultancies, and then moved on to become a DevOps engineer, and then gradually progressed into a lead role. This is my first lead role. So currently I'm leading a compute team at Compare the Market, where we build advanced compute platforms for microservices based around Kubernetes and AWS.
Great, thank you. And how long have you been in that role for then, as your first lead role?
Roughly 1.5 years now.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Katie, how did you get to where you are?
I have started with a computer science degree as well. I've graduated 4.5 years ago now. However, throughout these 4 years, I have different roles. Initially, I wanted to be a software developer. However, I transitioned into infrastructure and cloud platform roles. And I stayed within this area because I find it quite dynamic. And it's definitely forward moving in terms of how exactly we define the way we're going to run applications in the future. So being in this domain, I wanted to stay in this area. And then that's how I got into cloud native technologies. And that's where I'm actually working now. I'm working for the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which is giving a neutral ground for different projects to grow and maybe emphasize or provide more features for the community. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and pretty much currently within this role, I am leading the end user community, which are the organizations that use cloud native tools. However, they do not sell them. So these companies are pretty much all the practitioners of the cloud native tools, and I'm trying to pretty much galvanize all of their knowledge and at the same time close the gap between them and the project maintainers within the ecosystem.
Great, thank you. And then, so Nelly, tell us about your career path, please, and how did you get to be a software engineer at American Express?
Yeah. So I studied in Kenya. I did an IT degree in Kenya, and around 5 years ago, I moved from Kenya to the UK to join the American Express graduate program. In terms of my tech career, I was doing Android in Kenya, and then when I moved to American Express, I started doing a lot of backend and front end. And now I am in a role focusing on building, working on a framework that's used by developers within the company to build web frameworks. Yeah.
That's great, thank you. Great. And Jennifer, what's your career path to being senior software engineer, please?
Hi. Yes, I'm Jennifer, and I did an IT degree back in Brazil at university. And then my first job was as a junior developer, the equivalent of what's called today full stack developer. Then I moved to London and then worked as full stack and mostly backend developer for a few years until I moved to a site reliability engineer role and cloud infrastructure. And then now I'm working, I kind of merged both. I am a software engineer, but I'm working with Kubernetes, Golang, and cloud technologies.
Okay, great. And if you're a senior engineer, does that mean you've got some responsibility for other people as well? Are you like a technical lead for a team or something?
Not for people, but technical leadership, definitely.
Okay.
Yes, I run some
Great.
projects.
So technical authority stuff, fantastic. And then Chenzi, tell us about your career path, please.
Okay. I'm a QA engineer in SOSA, and I'm working in SOSA for 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I was a R&D assistant in Beijing office, and then I heard some positive things about Linux, and I like to do something difficult and something different. So I started to learn the new skills, and after developing some skills, I transferred to QA team, and now I'm a QA engineer. At first, I did some Bugzilla screening, and now I work with my team to test some projects. That's all.
Great. And then was that self-taught then, or did you go to sort of into education to sort of pick up those new skills that you needed?
Pardon, I didn't.
So you said that when you're in Beijing, you did some studying and to pick up some new skills when you moved from R&D to your current role. Is that something that you went back into education for, or did you just teach yourself?
I just teach myself.
Cool.
I read some books, and when I came across some questions, I asked the colleagues, and they are very nice.
Great, thank you for that. So as I said before, I think it's actually pretty unusual to have a full lineup, a full house, if you like, of people with hardcore engineering roles, and I think it's quite interesting to hear that almost everybody chose to do computer science or something related at university. One of the challenges that we hear in the tech industry is sometimes that there aren't many women in tech because of the pipeline, and girls aren't interested into going into engineering. So I think we've blown that myth out of the water just with this lineup today. So I'd like to ask a couple of our panel members, what was it that inspired them to get into engineering, and what led to that particular choice sort of line of study. So Nelly, what was it that sort of drew you to doing an IT degree in the first place?
Thank you. So I think for me, I grew up not knowing a lot about computers or not having interacted with any until I was 18. And I think afterwards I was trying to find out something that I wanted to do for uni. And I had older cousins, family that recommended courses, and I did want to find out how computers work. I think around that time, Facebook was quite popular. I didn't have an account, and I wanted to find out how do these technologies work. And I think when I started doing, so I applied and got into for that particular course. And I think during the process of learning about it, learning about the different, let's say, programming languages courses that I did, or units within that particular course, that's when I figured out I like the problem solving element of it. So coming up with an idea and building something using that, especially solving problems that you face day to day with technology. And I stuck through with that. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And so Jennifer, what drew you to go and do an IT degree when you were over in Brazil?
Well, in school, I always did better at math subjects than in others. So I always thought that something related to either engineering or some STEM degree would be a better fit for me. So I just tried that for that. And then I got a scholarship for this course in university. So I thought I'll give that a chance. I wasn't thinking necessarily of computing at the time, but because, yeah, the opportunity came, I then dove into it, and then here I am 15 years later.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a hugely inspiring field, and there's so many different types of jobs. I'd love to see, you know, more kids really interested in studying at a higher level. So, you know, as an all-female panel, then I'd be interested in knowing what challenges you face and how employers could better meet the needs of female engineers. You know, one thing that we have is getting more girls into studying engineering type subjects, but also all the stats show that women tend to leave the profession at a faster rate than their male peers do. So, Katie, what are your thoughts on that? You know, what have you noticed any particular challenges that you feel that you face that are different to your male peers? And what do you think, you know, organisations and industry could do better to support female engineers?
That's a very good question. I think throughout my career, I did have my own challenges in terms of either personally for me, I think it was more difficult to maybe set up a long-term goal of what exactly I would like to achieve throughout my career. I was always thinking in terms of the next position into the next promotion. So for example, as when I was at grad, I was aiming to be a mid engineer. And then when I was a mid, I was always planning kind of for the next level. I think this is something which is within all of the companies, and there's usually lots of support for that. However, there is not lots of support to maybe build the skills which move next from the senior role, because once you actually reach a senior role, you either continue on the technical path or you go into the leadership. And I think those don't necessarily, those kind of skills, they need to be nurtured from the beginning. And usually I think there's not a very good job of like maybe outlining those, or maybe making it clear for like, these are things that you'll need to develop throughout. So it doesn't, you don't have to delay it all the way through. Another thing that I would like to mention is that usually I think maybe for me, I'm speaking from my point of view, so the panelists here can either contribute or provide a different point of view. For me, I think I was always looking for a sponsor. I was always looking for someone who is going to either encourage me or maybe say to me like what is going to be the next step for me. And I was looking up to usually to my managers for that. In different companies, I think this is provision in different ways. For me, however, it wasn't the most efficient way to actually improve my skills. So what I've concluded was that sometimes it is good to be your own sponsor. So just take time, think of what you would like to do, reverse engineer that to some of the steps, like some of the skills you either need to acquire or you need to either embellish yourself a bit more of experience. And based on that, do kind of make your own small steps. And this has been quite, personally for me, it's been more efficient. I've been able to at least have some like this small track of success, let's put it this way, which kind of gives me a bit of confidence as well to move forward. So maybe what I'd like to mention as well is sometimes you have to be your own sponsor. Maybe that's the key message I'd like to get.
Great, thank you. And then Chenzi, it'd be good to hear about some of your experiences, whether you feel that you face any challenges that are unique to you because you're a woman, and what you think organisations could better do to support women in technical roles.
For me, I think the challenge is I would cost more time to get to know some new projects or something related to our projects. So, but actually, I think that's fun for me. So, and my team members are glad to share their opinions with me. So, so far I haven't have any big challenges.
That's great, thank you. And I think the sort of comments around developing leadership skills are really important. I think a lot's made when we talk about improving diversity of mentoring. I think that sponsorship is absolutely key. You might not necessarily know who your sponsors are. They could be advocating for you and you're not aware. So I guess I'd kind of advise everyone to keep their eyes open for that. And for those who are senior, advocate and sponsor all sorts of people, and particularly sort of look out for underrepresented talent would be my kind of sort of call to arms for any employers listening to this. And I think, you know, Katie, you're absolutely right on that leadership career path. I think the industry's made huge strides in the last few years with improving the diversity in the more junior levels, but there's still a lot to do with developing more senior women in the industry. And one of the challenges that women often face is not getting constructive feedback to be able to act upon in the same way that their male peers can. So they sort of may hear that they didn't get a promotion just because they weren't ready, for example, which is very vague. You can't really do anything with that. You know, we need to have much more specific feedback to be able to progress our careers. And then kind of moving to the sort of other end then, you know, what would your sort of top tips for the next generation of engineers be? And if you could go back in time and have a word with your teenage self, what would you say? So Dimple, what would you go back and say to yourself as a teenager, knowing what you know now?
I think I doubted a lot. I doubted myself a lot before going into engineering, because not many of my friends did. But looking back, I think it is important to be confident in yourself. And something that has helped me throughout my career is to let your work speak for itself, and not to you don't get the support you need all the time. But as long as you've put in the work, I think that it will shine somewhere. So I think being confident in yourself is the key thing going forward. I can't stress that enough. So if I was to go back to my teenage, so I'll definitely say you're on the right path. You know, and it's okay to make mistakes. You know, you learn from your mistakes. So don't be scared to make mistakes. You fail fast and learn from it and move forward.
Great, thank you. And then Jennifer, what would you say to your teenage self, or to any other teenagers considering careers in engineering?
To my teenage self, I would say, don't expect to hear "well done." You will be. Yeah, and I'd say also, don't be afraid of being wrong. Like Dimple said, the easiest path to get things right is to get things wrong first. Appreciate your own path of growth, and don't compare yourself to others. We are all different. Our career is going to be moving in a different way. If you measure yourself against yourself and you see how much you've grown, you're growing, you'll be admired with yourself, be more confident, and yeah.
Great, I love that. And I love that you both said very similar things about that self-belief, so having that kind of inner strength, and not being afraid to challenge yourself, taking a bit of a risk and kind of learning through failure. I think those are very important messages. And being yourself. We talk about being your authentic selves. You know, bringing all of your unique quirkiness, and not trying to emulate someone else, I think is the key to success. Great, fantastic. And then it'd be kind of everybody seems very passionate about their roles. So Chenzi, could you tell me what do you love about your role, and what do you look forward to? What is it that sort of motivates you to sort of get up in the morning and sort of crack on with your working day?
I think as long as I learn hard and research the area I'm interested in, I would have an opportunity to become an expert. Then I could do something, do some contribution to it. And besides, I could develop the skills as the world change.
Great, thank you. And then, Nelly, what is it you enjoy about your role in particular?
So because the team I work in solves problem for over 2,000 engineers within our company, and a lot of our web experiences are running on our platform. It's exciting to solve problems for it. Some of it is complex because not only are you also thinking about, because it's an open source platform, not only are you thinking about internal, external developers and meeting the needs of your existing customers, and also trying to build for the future. It's the work itself is challenging, and I enjoy doing that, working on complex problems like that. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then actually, Katie, I'm going to ask you the same question. What is it that you enjoy about your role in particular?
I think throughout any roles that I had in the past and my current role, there are two things that I'm looking for. There is the impact that I can make, and there is the personal growth, professionally, of course, that I can achieve throughout this role. So when it comes to the impact, for me, I think it's quite motivational when I either solve a problem or I even contribute to something and there is actually real change. There is either a community moving forward, there is the project which is growing, there is a wider adoption of a particular feature and so forth. So for me, that's something which makes me like I'm contributing to the community, but at the same time, my work is out there and everyone actually can gain from it. And then in terms of another thing that I'm looking for every single role is how can I grow within this role? What kind of skills can I learn? So in my current role, I'm definitely more focused within the leadership. How can I either grow, nurture a community? How can I expand or make sure that two different parts which are completely segregated, for example, the projects and the actual end users, how can we make sure there's a feedback loop happening between them? So definitely different focus. This is something which, again, makes me, quite motivated to be in my day-to-day job.
Great. Yeah, I think that's just listening to some of the key messages there. I think that's sort of that personal growth. I think the tech industry and engineering, you never really stand still. So there's always something new to learn and growth from. And that's certainly something that keeps me motivated. My role's evolved a lot over the years, but the tech itself's changed as well. So you can probably all imagine, because I'm so old, that 25 years in the tech industry, I've seen a lot of changes. It's so we've always got something new to learn, which I think keeps it very interesting. Great. I'm just trying to think what else we could cover that might be interesting. I did particularly like what would you say to your teenage selves? So it'd be great to hear, what just sort of anybody on the panel, really, kind of an open question. What would you say to future engineers to encourage them into engineering if they're considering this as a career path? What's the draw, and how can we kind of advertise the range of roles and the exciting opportunities to encourage more engineers, and particularly more female engineers, into this field? So kind of an open question to the panel there.
I can say something. It would be, it's the variety of things and the creativity that you can put into several domains. So I've worked in so many different domains. For example, I have worked in a project for the Indian Digital Archive where we helped people, basically helping families find their like grandparents that were separated when they were young to in Canada, for example, and in America. So like you are putting an impact in people's lives as well. You are dealing with several very interesting problems, and you can also work in projects where you are inventing something that people didn't even think about before. So you can choose an area that you like and then provoke a huge impact in that. be that websites, be that patents, be that charities, and also the underlying technologies, apps, games. So it's huge. And also you deal a lot with people. You have to understand people's emotions and people's ways of communicating. Sometimes people prefer reading things, so you have to improve your writing. Some people prefer to visualize things, so you have to be able to communicate through diagrams and things. So there is a lot of human interaction and understanding. So you can also go through a more people understanding path, because it is vital for the for the projects to be successful, to have good interactions with people. So you can go. It's so expansive, the area. Yeah. So I would definitely recommend.
Thank you. And I love the enthusiasm that came through when you shared that as well. That's good. That's fantastic. And Nelly, what would you say to kind of, if you could kind of like stand on a stage, which I guess we are here virtually today, and speak to, you know, thousands of teenagers to kind of sort of get them to be passionate about careers in engineering?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think for me, especially looking at my career path to this point, and to my younger self, definitely is the fact that you don't see people who are similar to you. And I think sometimes it's hard to like imagine how does the future look when your experiences are completely different from people you interact with. And I think for me, it's just around creating role models through yourself. So being a role model for others, and also the fact that you don't see, shouldn't stop you. Don't see people with similar career paths as you, or people who are have similar experiences. I think it's important in that case to be authentic, to be an authentic person and be yourself, because those are some of this that allows you to be able to even build products that are better and brings out like the uniqueness in terms of how you solve problems, your unique experiences. You definitely face challenges because of the differences that you will encounter throughout your career, but I think you can use those as things that encourage you to work better, and also you can use that to like change circumstances for people who come after you, and be a role model. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then Chenzi, if you were going to sort of sell your current job to a bunch of teenage girls, what would you say to try and get them enthusiastic about it?
First one is reading more books. I think no matter what happened, or no matter when, we should learn more, and everyone should learn reading more books, and we can learn a lot from the book. The second is do whatever you want to do when you are young, and the third one is try to find out the area you are interested in as soon as possible, and then try to research deeply and do some contribution to the area.
Great, thank you. And then just to wrap up, because I'm conscious that we're running out of time, question to sort of Dimple and Katie then. Now that we've convinced sort of thousands of teenage girls to want to follow a career path in engineering with all of this enthusiasm and presentation of some fantastic role models here, what would you say to employers to sort of better the lot of women in the workplace, to help nurture female talent that they've got and develop those career paths? So Dimple, what would your sort of one request of employers be to help support female engineers that they've got or are trying to recruit into more senior levels, perhaps?
Yeah, I would say don't hire a female engineer because you want to check a box in your company, but be ready for the long run. have some training and mentorship in place, and nurture like new talent. For example, if you want a lead, female lead in your company, instead of hiring an already existing lead from another company, nurture your senior engineers to become a lead, train them to become a lead, so you're then creating a new talent in the industry, and you kind of like contribute to their future as well. So you're kind of investing in them long term, and that's very important. So don't give up on them as soon as you hire them. And also flexible working. The number of women you can retain in the industry, if you just give a leeway of an hour or two, is great. So that's my only advice to the employers.
Great. Thank you. And Katie, what would you say? What would you ask of employers to help nurture female talent?
I think this was mentioned before, but constructive feedback is such a powerful tool. I think more often than not, there are replies such as like, you can get this promotion within the 2 years, or again, you don't have enough skills, or you're not ready for this role. So I think having constructive feedback, but not only just giving the feedback, but actually giving an opportunity, or maybe just pointing to the right resource, something which is actually going to help to make that step. Because like even if you get the constructive feedback, like not many do something about it, because sometimes it's not clear how exactly. If you have feedback, something like you need to improve your leadership skills, this is not just about leading a project. This is about how you communicate. This is about how you interact with different peers. This is like, there are so many things encompassed within this like small word. Well, small. It's just a word, but there's so many skills behind it. So I think just giving constructive feedback and maybe providing a good set of actions to get started, especially in the early career, especially when trying to move again from the senior roles to the next step, like be it technical leadership or management leadership as well. So that's something I wanted to mention. And yeah, the power of giving an opportunity, again, I think it's undermined. I think most of the opportunities are given based on either experience. If someone is going to be, for example, within a company for 10 years, they might have more chances to get a new project assigned. I think sometimes just give a chance to someone who is new and or like someone who's like within their early career. And I think that's going to be an eye-opening to many. So just give the opportunity, constructive feedback, and actionable feedback as well sometimes.
Great. Thank you. And thank you everybody so much for your contribution. I found it hugely inspiring having an opportunity to speak to all of you, and your passion for your roles really comes across. So I'm hoping that will inspire others into having careers in engineering as well. And I particularly love it that we've had such an international panel, that we've had people from all over the world, congregating here today to be on this panel. Which just shows the kind of the breadth of appeal of engineering roles, I think, and very well articulated on some of the challenges and some of the things that organisations can do to support the careers of women in the technology industry. So thank you all for your. I'm certainly been inspired speaking to you all. So thanks very much. Thank you.